What's good, y'all? Hope everybody's well. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Starting a new week, trying to get it in. Still grading, coming off of illness. Those of you who sent positive energy and prayers for my son, it's much appreciated. He's back on his feet. He's doing his thing. So, that's a relief. I ain't seen him really sick in over a decade. So if you've never, dealt with worry before, seeing your child sick will do that. But he's good. Shout out to all of you that extended support on all levels. It's much appreciated. Shout out to MLR. What's going on, man? Good to see you. Ron, what's up? Eclectic, what's going on? Iceberg. See a few of y'all in here. Hybrid, Kiel, Barry, what's the word? Brotherly Love, what's up? Barry, again, appreciate that support. To Hakeem, thank you. Make sure y'all like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will, so we can keep bringing you this information. Now, today, it's we're gonna get to it pretty quick because I do have to get back to grading, but there's some stuff that I definitely had to cover. So please make sure you support the channel because many of us who are doing this work, as with anybody, we're pulling away from other things, and it does take energy. Being a content creator, if you actually value what you're saying, what you're trying to do, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes research. So, please make sure that you support those who are doing so. And most particularly, look out for my boys, BGS, support the BGS Ibmore channel, support the Green Gorilla channel, and also extending some love to Dr. Ronald Neal, who I actually want to start out with today, because he dropped some words in a video today that were quite profound. They've hit the spirit of the moment, even though, if I'm not mistaken, he recorded this a while ago. But I would very much like for you all to see it. So bear with me here as I try and put this up. But we're dealing today with when feminists are paid to hate you. And the reason we're dealing with that very issue is because that's one of the things we're dealing with. That's what's on the agenda. That's one of the things we've been seeing. And, just to put some context to it, I come out of Black male studies. Shout out to Greg for the Cash App. And Black male studies in many ways was a response to a legacy of racist and sexist scholarship against Black men. The difficulty with that, because it normally would have been handled within the confines of Black studies, on Africana studies, so on and so forth. But when it started coming from feminists, Black feminists, that presented a different problem. And it presented a problem where, you couldn't really respond from within Africana studies because many of the feminists that you interacted with were invested in some of those ideas. So I'm not saying that's the primary impetus around Black male studies, but it was a pretty heavy one, where Black male scholars had to find another avenue to have certain types of conversations, right? So that's one aspect of it. Now, on the other side, you have the development of the manosphere that is responding to the environment. And so even though both pushes are not necessarily the same, they do reinforce each other, because we're living in a moment where the current zeitgeist amongst Black men is about actually challenging and pushing back from how we've been depicted, how we've been talked about, so on and so forth. Shout out to Jamar, I think it is. Appreciate that support. Shout out to MS Delta guy for that generous support. Much appreciated. Thank you for supporting us. What's up, Eric? You in there? Appreciate that sentiment. All right, so here we go. Let's check out my boy, and let's hear what Dr. Ronald Neal has to say about this.
It reinforces this idea that somehow the only population that has risen to the occasion in the face of fundamental white fairness are Black women. The political sphere reflects this. The election, our most recent election, reflects this. The Black women who are mayors of cities, the Black women who sit as judges, in cities, the Black women who occupy high positions in academia and the upper echelons of American society reinforce this idea that Black men are inept, incompetent, and inferior in relationship to the Black female population. And that racism, classism, misandry, and overall American caste system cannot be seen as the factors or the variables that explain the condition and plight of Black men. So we have two fundamentally different realities between these two populations. Black women on one hand and Black men on the other. The lived experiences between these two groups are not the same. The economic, educational, political outcomes between these two groups are not the same. These two groups are not walking in the same direction. In the broad scheme of things, this dynamic represents a Band-Aid. It represents a shortcut to the lives, to the souls of Black folk. I stand before you today as a Black man who has witnessed and witnesses this bifurcation, and who is disenchanted by it. And I am despondent by the lack of acknowledgement on the part of elites, Black female elites, Black male elites, and the white people who run the United States. This country will not experience true, robust, full-blown racial justice to the extent that it supports a two-tiered reality that reflects the lives, circumstances, and conditions of Black men and Black women.
Shout out to Dr. Ronald Neal. That's just a very short excerpt from a piece that he posted earlier today. I implore you to check the whole video just for more context, but the brother is solid. Please make sure that you subscribe to his channel. If you have not done so, it is definitely something you want to do. Now, the reason I played that clip, however, was because he speaks to a radical difference in many respects between the opportunities and options that many Black women and many Black men have access to. And that has promoted a certain entitlement that radically changes the nature of our relationship as Black men and women. And we've talked about this for a long period of time over here on the Onyx Report, so that isn't new to any of my long-term listeners. But the levels of vitriol tied to that entitlement can sometimes take us off guard. I'm going to share with you a couple of things. First, shout out to Barry for that donation. Appreciate that. Shout out to Samuel for the Cash App. Much appreciated. Again, make sure you support the channel. And if you have something you want to say, put something in the pot, and I'll read your comment. Shout out to Green Gorilla, who's in the house. Shout out to Tim. Right, so we got a few in here. But so this is something that I know is pretty much going to be hard to see. I'll see if I can open it up a little more. Shout out to Mr. Heat for that support. Support your scholars. Hit that like button. Much appreciated, right? So here's a couple things. So now these are some tweets that we can see Professor Crunk, also known as Brittney Cooper, academic professor at Rutgers. And she is routinely in the news for disparaging Black men. I've met Brittney. We've talked before. We don't see eye to eye on very many things, but clearly, her statements over the years have just gotten more egregious. Shout out to Tim for that support. And so here she's responding to Mark Lamont Hill. And I'm just going to read over a couple of these and then get to the core of what I wanted to show. Right. Also, shout out to MLR, for the support. Much appreciated. So Mark Lamont Hill says, just saw another Kevin Samuels tattoo, this time on a dude's thigh. I literally just don't understand. And it's very clear you don't. It's very clear you don't. I think you're very much out of touch with many Black men as part of the blue check elite, as it were. And so Brittney responds as she would, to any like-minded whatever. She says, ew, what? Child, while these other folks having combos about the radicalization of their men, we should seriously have a conversation about the online radicalization of ours, right? And so in a response, in the second post in the middle, somebody writes in, are they being radicalized or have they always been this way and found their king in him? Now, this is very derogatory, dismissive language, right? And what this kind of language does is it really doesn't force anyone to actually have to deal with the arguments on the table, right? This is a way that you can slander the discussion without having to address anything in it whatsoever. And in the last post, she says, this is Brittney Cooper. I stand by that. I use the language of radicalization because it's the right language. I've experienced receiving thousands of angry comments from both angry white men and angry Black men. Shit sounds identical. All of you hope a heart attack or diabetes kill me, so you say, right? So that's where she goes with that. So Black men and white men are essentially the same because they're frustrated with you, and therefore they must be whatever they must be. Herbert, appreciate that support. Says keep it real. Will do. Dr. CD2, much appreciation to you for the rage quit. Yeah. So those are the comments. And so what I actually did was, let me see where to go. I posted the last one, right, that she had up. And this is in my community tab, right? And it says, so while I was not attempting to compare, Black men to Peyton Gendron, when I made a flippant response to a friend's post on here, I absolutely mean what I say about the internet radicalization of Black men. Y'all not become mass shooters. Y'all are not becoming mass shooters, but you're still a possible threat. Now, just to even put Black men in the same sentence with Peyton Gendron is already a problem. It's already a dismissive act. It's already a racist act. It's already a massively disrespectful act that puts a white supremacist who went out of his way to kill 10 people, right, on the same plane with Black men who are finally developing a voice to respond to a treatment in both society and in their own community that they haven't had a response to. Individual Black men have responded, but there hasn't been any kind of mainstream collective response by Black men. Not in a way where Black men can actually communicate with one another and develop the vocabulary to do so. We have not seen it. I'm almost 50. I ain't seen it in my lifetime. And as I see it, as it starts to develop, this is the type of response it gets, right? So what I wanted to share alongside this extremely racist and misandric post or tweet from Brittney Cooper was Dr. Tommy Curry himself. And Dr. Tommy Curry drops some fire on this that I think we need to appreciate. He says, this is the hate speech Black men are burdened with in American universities. In 40 years, there have been about 122 mass shootings, killings of 4 more victims. Blacks have only committed 21. In terms of public killings, which is what is being discussed, Black men are the least likely group to commit these types of murders. According to Adam Langford, there were also some statistically significant differences across races in attack behavior. When it came to public killings, 24% of white and 19% of Asian mass murderers committed these attacks, compared to only 9% of Latino and 6% of Black mass murderers. Okay? coming out of Adam Langford's Race and Mass Murder in the United States, a social and behavioral analysis. And you can find that written in 2016. So as Dr. Curry does on a regular basis, he responds to issues with data. And he's been the inspiration for many of the brothers coming out of Black male studies and engaging the manosphere and attempting to bring that same culture. And in many ways, it was already here, but trying to add to it, if you will. But Dr. Curry gives us some data, and he cites Mother Jones, this website here. So this is a site you can check out. It goes into some more detail on the information around it. Oh, I think I lost the... Okay, I don't think it came up. This is not the right page. No problem. Y'all know what it is. See, this is what happens when you have independent media, right? And independent media, especially by Black men, this is not something that's been funded by corporations. This is not funded by networks. This is not something that Black men are finding themselves given multi-million-dollar deals to push forward. Maybe that might happen, but we're not there yet. So anyway, so this is the page that Dr. Curry cites on the Mother Jones website. U.S. mass shootings, 1982 to 2022, data from Mother Jones investigation. And if you want any more information about what Dr. Curry was talking about, this is where you can find it. I will put the link to this in the description after the video is done. Just give me about 5 minutes after the video, and I will post it up there with the link to Dr. Neal's channel, so you can check that out. But the main piece I wanted to communicate is that we need to make sure we continue to respond with data and logic. And the temptation here is to go off emotionally and with rage, and it's in many ways justifiable. But we have to remain logical, and we have to look at these kinds of comments for what they are. And Dr. Curry names it out very clearly. Hate speech. That's not a term that we're used to using when it comes to our own community. That's one of the difficulties. That's one of the Black masculinist turns of the current moment, where many a Black man has had to come to grips with the fact that much of the source of hate speech that Black men receive is no longer just coming from white supremacists. It's also coming from Black women within the Black community. But then add to that, you have academic Black feminists at elite universities, well-to-do, well-established, well-educated. And we've seen this trend going back to the mid-70s. And with social media, it's only gotten worse. So if you connect the kind of rhetoric of Dr. Cooper with the kind of rhetoric we've heard on Clubhouse, the kind of rhetoric we've heard from divestors, the hatred is real, right? And we're not hearing this just from random individuals. We're hearing this from groups of Black women who are talking. But even when we do hear it from individuals, we can talk about just a nameless face on Twitter or something like that, all the way up to elite professors. But the other difference, though, the other issue on the table is that this is something we've heard for generations, and it's only ramped up in recent years. And it's time that we actually begin to reflect on this and what it means. And many of us are doing so. MS Delta, appreciate that support again, says, wow. So some Black women are really agents against Black men. Yeah. Brotherly Love, appreciate that support. He says subject and topic. Indeed. BMC Cray, appreciate that. He says thanks for your labor. I love, much appreciated. Yeah. Sandra Jean says sign language. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Sign language is definitely in the house. Another member statement from Brother Love 215. Appreciate that. Good to have you, man. But yeah, this is what we're dealing with, man. Hakeem, another 10 spot. Appreciate that support. This is what we have to call out. So if you missed any of the data or you need to see it in writing, you can wait for the link in the video, or you can go to my community tab and you can actually look at it written out, because I think it's important we fight back this kind of misandric bile with accuracy and not emotion. These dismissive concepts where you have a public figure like Dr. Cooper who's going to make, an individual on Twitter, a nameless, faceless individual, the face of Black men. But your statements associating Black men with a white supremacist killer of 10 people in public, most of whom were elder women, that's actually, that sounds reasonable. But it's not just for Dr. Cooper, it's for those who support that kind of language. Because in the Black community, It's been ramping up for years, and it's been normalized in many respects. That hate speech has been normalized to the degree where people will support what she's saying. You'll have black women that'll support it as feminists, and then you'll have black male feminists who support it in this kind of this idea that if they can just appease women enough, feminists enough, get patted on the head, that somehow it's bullshit. The reality is, no matter where you stand, if you identify as a feminist, if you identify as a masculinist, if you're apolitical, whatever, that kind of speech should be ridiculous. It shouldn't be accepted whatsoever. And that's one of the things we have to actually push for. We actually have to demand. And this is what's frustrating so many people. Black men demanding to be treated humanely and not accepting this. Look, a few years ago, comments like that would have gotten very little pushback. You'd have a couple of brothers in there, but mostly it would have been a high five moment for all the women in there. The last time I went to Dr. Cooper's Twitter page, she removed the comment or blocked it or whatever. Right? A few years ago, she'd have been getting high fives. And I know that because I've debated her in those circles. And it would be a high five circle of women that would be there. But I'm seeing more black men speak up than I ever have. And I want to encourage you to continue to do so. The only thing I want to add to that is don't allow it to become emotional. They respond with emotion. And I'm talking about people in general that don't like how the stance many black men are starting to take. And it doesn't have to be limited to feminists, but don't allow yourself to delve into that. Respond with logic, respond with clarity, respond with precise arguments, and respond with data. And that's the reason that a number of us are here. We're furnishing you with the vocabulary, the arguments, and the data so that you can use it in the context that you find yourself in. I don't care if it's a Thanksgiving dinner with family. I don't care if it's a work environment where conversations that are taking place in your presence are unacceptable. I don't care if it's within the nuclear family and you hear something that's just out of pocket, particularly with a guest that may visit, or if it's online. At the end of the day, we have to fight this ridiculous shit with clarity and logic. And we all get tested. But here's the other part that I want to ask you to do in all sincerity. Support each other as brothers. Support each other as brothers. Treat these debates, especially, because one of the things I've noticed over the years is a lot of these people like to swarm. That's what they like to do. They like to swarm. So even online, you'll get 3 or 4 people that'll try and dismiss what you're saying, and then and they'll try to present themselves as right simply because there's more of them in the room that agree. Support the brothers. If you find a brother that's arguing the points that you agree with, support him. If you find a black woman that's actually, or a woman in general that supports the position that we advocate for, support it. And here's the thing, support the argument, not just the person, because a person might have all kinds of beliefs that you don't agree with. But if they agree with you on this issue, whatever that issue is, support the argument. Take whatever useful information you can and spread it. But at the end of the day, we have to become better stewards of each other as brothers. We got to share the information with one another, share the logic, share the arguments, share the talking points, share the data, but also support one another. I don't care if it's an online debate. I don't care if it's at a conference and you find people starting to attack, somebody that agrees with your position, especially as it relates to the upliftment of black boys and men. Support them. I want these people to know that brothers roll in groups, and if you're going to attack one of us, you're going to get attacked because that brother's going to get support, or that person who's advocating for black men and boys is going to be supported. That's where we need to take this at this juncture. Most particularly after the death of Kevin Samuels, we saw a level of misandry, vitriol that we were, in many respects, unprepared for, unless you've been here before. But for many, it was a shock. For many, it was their doorway into a space of listening to black men talk about these things, something that they may not have heard before. And now it's time that they do. Francis, appreciate that. So that, at the end of the day, that's where we need to take this. Wrench Turner, appreciate that. 403 in the building. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel. But this is where we are. And this isn't new for Dr. Cooper. This isn't new. I think it's in many ways escalating over time, but it's far from new. This is the kind of vitriol she's been known for Michael, appreciate that support. Says, I wonder, has she read The Man Not? Most women don't even know it exists. If she has, she's staying away from it. She's definitely staying away from it. Mainly because she doesn't want to deal with Tommy. Tommy deals in facts. So that's not something she wants to deal with. And that's actually something that a lot of these people are allergic to. Facts. And that's one of the reasons that I argue that we're very different from feminists, and I want to maintain that difference. I don't want to look up in 20 years and black men sound like the feminists of today. I want us to actually be able to conduct ourselves with accuracy, with right information, with clarity. And here's the thing. If you actually find out information that you didn't know that refutes your argument, can we be mature enough to accept that? Or at the very least, hold the argument and say, you know what? I didn't know that. And look into it further. You know, that's another difference because feminists don't do that in many instances. I shouldn't say all feminists. We get into these damn all conversations, but in many ways, the kind of feminists that I'm used to seeing online, they won't admit being wrong about anything, even when the data's in their face. I mean, look at the exchange you just saw from Dr. Cooper and Dr. Curry. She makes a flippant comment in public about black men and their relationship to white supremacist murderers, mass murderers, without even questioning any of the data at all. And it turns out that black men are actually the least willing to commit these kinds of acts. But as we've said before, and as Dr. Curry has pointed out, it's only with black men that a fraction of a fraction can somehow represent the entire group. If you talk about intimate partner violence, a fraction of black men that commit it somehow reflect all black men. You talk about intimate partner homicide, the even smaller fraction of black men that commit it somehow become reflective of all black men. It doesn't matter what the issue is. It always ends up becoming something that blows back in black men's faces. And this is something we have to push back against. This is something we have to challenge because at the end of the day, nobody else is going to. People are quite comfortable with this framework. And many of us are tired of it. So I implore you to use this information to help advance what we're trying to do and support other brothers or people you hear in general that are supportive of the space and what we're doing, whether it's in the academy, whether it's online, whether it's in the professional workplace. Advocate for black men and boys in a robust, unapologetic manner, but don't let it stray outside the bounds of what's accurate and true. Because at the end of the day, it's just going to end up blowing back in our face the way we see it happening with some of these feminists. I mean, when you heard the vitriol coming after Kevin Samuel's death, it was ridiculous. I don't want us to ever actually be in that position. I don't celebrate people's deaths even when I don't agree. I don't celebrate health issues gone awry. I don't celebrate any of that bullshit. I don't wish any ill on them. I just keep to the argument at hand and I keep it moving. Because at the end of the day, what happens to them is irrelevant to me. The upliftment of black boys and men is my only priority as far as that. That's my focus in improving the quality of life for black men and boys. M. Lavo says, thanks to you and many of the gentlemen in the Black Manosphere, I've learned to listen to other black men. I've also learned to support other brothers. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Officer Faulkner, what's going on? I'm surprised at her, especially after retirement from the NFL. Y'all support Charles Faulkner. He's got a new show. Shout out to Alexander for the Cash App. He's got a new show where he's allowing people to ask questions about things related to tactical information and so on and so forth. Brilliant concept. I think it's the greatest evolution for his platform. So I want y'all to support it. Very powerful. Michael Jordan, appreciate that support. Says Dr. Curry changed my life. He and Gwinnetta are black royalty. Absolutely. Gwinnetta Curry is Dr. Curry's wife. She's also a scholar. They both done some brilliant work. They both did a piece together a few years ago that was fire. That I have to find, and if anybody wants to know about it, I'll look it up for you. But definitely support Dr. Curry, and as I said, continue to support the space, but do so within the boundaries of what's true, and let's not get lost in the emotional kind of end of it, because then we just end up sounding like them, and I don't want that shit. Because this kind of mess right here, I think in some respects, if you have any amount of self-respect, or you consider yourself, somebody that carries themselves with some degree of dignity, you can't stand by this argument, even if you call yourself a feminist. But this is the kind of shit we're talking about. These are the kind of feminists that we're talking about. When I cite you, the feminists that I've dealt with in the academy, that I've argued with at conferences, who've written about me negatively, but most importantly, responded to me disingenuously, or as Kevin used to say, in bad faith. Don't respond in bad faith, respond with accuracy. Because here's the thing, I don't engage these arguments for the sake of engaging the arguments. I engage them for the people who are watching and reading and listening on the side, some of whom I'll never know are there, whose positions change not only because they're introduced to accurate information, but people actually do respond to how you carry yourself in an argument. And if you allow it to descend into name calling and slander and all of that, you lost. Even if you were right, you lost. Don't lose. Stay in the pocket. Stay logical. Stay flexible to accurate information, and at the same time, don't back off your position because of sign language. Shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. That's something we've heard a lot of, and many of us have grown up with in our families, dealt with in our relationships and marriages. It ain't new. We never heard it called out and given a name before, but it ain't new. So when it's presented to you in a debate, don't let it shake you. Stay to the facts and support each other in the midst of those debates. I got to get back to grading. I just wanted to drop a quick message, and I wanted to share that information. Use it. Fight fire with this fire. Get back at them with truth. And make sure you support the scholars that are doing that work to keep you in the pocket. Be well. Peace.